morning, Professor Michaelson, and thank you for being with us in this last day of the ISBEE Congress here at the University of Deusto. Christopher Michaelson is Professor of Principled Leadership and the Academic Director of the Melrose and the Toro Company Center for Principled Leadership at the University of St. Thomas, Opus College of Business. As a scholar and business advisor, he explores how meaning and purpose in life and at work can improve our life and others' lives. Throughout his career, Christopher has built bridges between scholarship and practice. I am Ricardo Aguado, and I am Associate Professor of Microeconomics and the Head of the Economics Area of Deusto Business School, University of Deusto. Well, Christopher, during these days of the ISBEE Congress, we have been analyzing the role of business ethics following the motto of the Congress, Reinventing Globalization, Community, Virtues, and the Power of Purpose. Do you think that the power of purpose in business and organizations in general can help us to reinvent globalization?
First of all, thank you for having me. I think the answer to that question for me depends upon what we mean by purpose. I think for a long time, the purpose of business has been assumed to be to maximize shareholder value. I think the power of purpose is to rethink and reinvent what we think the purpose of business and the purpose of capitalism is. For example, I think that the purpose of business can be reframed to supply the world's legitimate demand, what the world needs, what it ought to want. But I think a lot of executives are talking about the power of purpose today as not only a business strategy, but also as a way to attract and retain employees who care about working for a purpose. I think some of those executives mean it, and some of them are just marketing.
Okay. So in that sense, how can we work in the academia with corporations, public organizations, and other employers so that all employees could have meaningful jobs?
Well, I think I'm very optimistic about our current generation of students, our future leaders. Although I think all human beings care about living a meaningful life, I think this generation is particularly thinking about what that means with regard to their work. But it's not always easy to find meaning and purpose in work. So not only does your employer need to state its purpose for existing, but also it has to align with what you're seeking in your own work.
Of course.
So I think one thing that we can do is help our students clarify what matters to them in their careers. Are they seeking to maximize their own profit, or are they seeking a rewarding, satisfying career where they make a contribution to society? Where can they find that opportunity to make that contribution?
Okay. That sounds very demanding and also very exciting for us as part of the academia. Talking not only about future generations, but the workers of today, in many cases, bright professionals get burnt out after years of decades of intense work. Do you think that the development of the concept of minimum work could be useful to minimize these problems?
You know, I worked in management consulting before I was an academic. And so I saw a lot of people work very hard for very long and get burnt out. And I do think that they started to think about, what is this all for? And I think that's a natural impulse for human beings. But sometimes we're so busy at work that we don't even have time to reflect in a thoughtful way on what we are seeking. And so we just keep doing the same thing for years and years and years until we get tired out. So I think that we need to take the time to pause and reflect on what is the purpose of work in our lives, and is it worth the sacrifice that we make in order to go to work? And meaningful work isn't a sacrifice. It's, I think, an opportunity, as I said before, to make a contribution.
Okay. Going back to one of the first moments in this ISBEE Congress, Professor Danny Roderick insisted in the idea that the hyper-globalization process in which we still live in has focused on the idea of profit to give sense to almost all economic and social activities. If we are able to provide meaning to our professional tasks, not only because they generate profit, but also because they make a positive contribution towards the well-being of others, we could generate a new narrative to reinvent globalization. How can, in your opinion, how can we contribute to this aim with our undergraduate courses, MBAs, and PhD programs?
Well, I don't think profit is bad, and I don't think that Professor Roderick thinks it is bad either. But I don't think it's as good as we have made it out to be. I think part of the reason that we focus so intensely on profit is that it's easy to measure.
Okay.
And I think sometimes the most important things in life are difficult to measure. And so I think in our programs, we need to teach our students about those things that are both easy and difficult to measure. When I talk to my students about the most important things in their lives, they say things like love and friendship and happiness. None of those things are easy to measure. Profit can be a means to some of those ends. We all know money can't buy happiness, but it can support happiness.
Yeah. Okay.
But it is just a means to an end. And I think similarly with business, it's easy to measure success in terms of profit. It's harder to measure success in terms of contribution to society. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't prioritize it.
A last question. Considering your experience with students, with corporations, with managers, which elements, in your opinion, are more important in order to find meaning and purpose in work?
Well, my PhD is in philosophy. I studied philosophy not because I thought it would help me become the most successful business person, but because I was interested in exploring the meaning of life.
Okay.
And it's a question that I'm still asking. I don't think I'll ever know the answer to it, but I think it's an important question to ask. And so with my students, I have them think a lot about philosophical questions. I actually don't have them read philosophy because reading philosophy can be very boring. But I have them read literature. I have them perform plays, listen to music, watch films, and think about the lives of characters and the lives of other people, and how they want to relate to other human beings as professionals and as people. And I think that's one way in order to get them to think about the things that matter.
Okay, that was very, very inspiring. Thank you very much, Professor Michaelson, for all your interesting insights on this topic and for sharing your knowledge and your time with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.